Members, with that, we will proceed with House File 261. Representative Koznick, welcome to the committee, and please proceed with your bill.
Thank you, Chair Baker and members. Lead Pinto. This is House File 261. It builds off of a pilot program that we did 2 years ago with the generosity of this committee and the legislature. What it does is provides equine experimental health therapy for first responders. In this second go at it, we are adding active or retired police officers, full-time firefighters, and volunteer firefighters, ambulance service personnel, 911 communicators, and correctional officers. From the first pilot that we did, there were retired members of that class that were not able to qualify under the pilot. And then also some of the other first responders were not eligible as well. But I think most importantly is that this program and this type of therapy has proven to be very successful for first responders and the unique traumas and significant traumas that they experience. And through the reporting in this bill and the previous bill, we have a 98% retention rate of keeping first responders working in their departments and their profession. I have two testifiers with us that can explain a little bit more about the program. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Koznick. I'm not sure which testifier will go first. Is it Ms. Mixon? Okay. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, sir. I'm Sally Mixon. I'm the founder of...
Yeah, just pull the microphones in. We got to kind of eat them in this room, so thank you.
I'm Sally Mixon. I'm the founder of Abijah's. As Representative Koznick shared, yes, we have a 98% success rate, and success rate in our eyes is first responders remaining in their job. Something that's really exciting, though, is we did have an officer who started coming to us who was retired, so he wasn't under the bill. And he actually, after 1.5 to 2 years of working with us, he just had his first day back at the department that he retired from, which was so cool and amazing to see. So came to his session yesterday and was excited and shared, all about that. So it's an incredible program. I mean, somebody that believes wholeheartedly. I've been doing this work for over a decade. To see numbers like that was surprised. I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And so just so incredibly grateful for y'all backing this and supporting this. I'm excited for you to hear Nick's story. Nick is one of many that we see weekly. And it's just been an incredible experience. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mixon. Next up is Officer Jacobson. Welcome to the committee. We're grateful for you and your service. Thank you for coming this morning, and please proceed with your testimony after you announce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Nick Jacobson. I'm a current Lakeville police officer. I have been for about 11 years, just over 11 years. Just a brief history of myself. Out of high school, joining the Marine Corps Infantry. Deployed a few times to Afghanistan, about 2 years total. During that time, went through quite a bit of combat. Lost over half my squad killed in action, more wounded in action, dismembered, that type of thing. My transition out of the Marine Corps and back into civilian life, I would say, was harder than expected. I always felt like I was here, but never really present, never really actually left Afghanistan. I was trying to find a way to get back, not just maybe there, but to any fight where I felt like I belonged. After many attempts at different forms of therapy through the government, VA, or private practices, I decided that I wasn't something that could be fixed. And just kind of tried to hide who I really was and tried to find a reason after a while just to get back into the fight, like I said. Recently, a friend of mine who's a Navy SEAL commander noticed who I actually was, pulled me aside, and gave me the information to Abijah's. He told me it was an equine therapy. He said he uses it with himself and his team members and has seen great success. I begrudgingly took the information, spoke with Sally, and met her on my first session with Abijah's. And one thing that sticks with me that I'll never forget is she said that you can always lie to us as therapists, but you can never lie to the horses. And that is so true. To understand it fully, I just believe each and every one of you would have to experience it firsthand and in person. Ever since I started with Abijah's and with Sally, I've noticed an amazing transition in my life, being more present as a father, a husband, and just a general police officer. My care for going back to combat is decreasing daily. I'm just enjoying life more and more, and it's all thanks to Abijah's and Sally.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Any other comments, Representative Koznick, before we go to members?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just say that healthier officers, healthier first responders means that we have safer communities and the responses that they do. I'm grateful that I just stumbled upon this program through a constituent as I was out visiting Canterbury Park and looking at the races. And like I said, we're not just helping feed or anything with the horses like that. It's actual clinical therapy and utilizing the intuitiveness of the horses to bring out the issues with our first responders. And because the program was in place, and unfortunately, but fortunately, there's tragedy that they face every day. But fortunately, because we had this program in place, we just came upon the 1-year anniversary of that horrible tragedy in Burnsville. One of the first calls of the Burnsville Police Department and the Lakeville Police Department next door that I represent was to provide support for all those first responders that were involved in that. And so very glad that that was in place. And again, the 98% retention, you could imagine there are a lot of questioning of if that's the right profession for you. And we know that we are struggling with workforce all over. That's what the committee's charge is. But specifically, one of the main things that we do as government is provide for the safety of our community. And this is one way that we can continue to help that workforce shortage in this community. So grateful for this program to help not just the Lakeville Police Department, but police departments, sheriff's departments, first responders all across the state, really. And they've got the numbers in the reports to show that as well if you have some questions about that. But I appreciate the committee's time this morning and the work that you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Koznick. And again, I want to thank Ms. Mixon for this doing this program. It sounds amazing. And my question, and I'll switch over to members. How long has this been going, and have you received funding from the state in this committee before this?
Thank you, Chair.
Mixon.
This program has been going on for over 10 years now. I started Abijah's about 10 years ago. I brought it to Canterbury Park in 2021 to really hone in on the thoroughbreds. I'm an exercise jockey as well, so the thoroughbreds have a lot in common with first responders. They don't want to slow down until they break down, those types of things. So I just saw this really unique parallel and wanted to just go after this population and be really not just good, but great at it. And so that's when we shifted to Canterbury and just solely started focusing on that. And I can't remember your last question.
Ms. Mixon, have you received support from the state before in the prior years?
Last session, sir, we did, the bill was similar, but it only did active duty, active police and fire.
I see.
And so we, as an organization, continued to see all first responders through our donors. We want to keep building this and growing this. Eventually go statewide and help other help other places do this. So with this other retired cop going back into service, it was just like, we've got to, this is amazing. And if we can spread that over into the retired, maybe they won't be first responders anymore, but they'll be healthy citizens, giving back. And so that's the goal, the hope.
Thank you for that. Representative Lesnikar.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative Koznick, for bringing this bill. Horses are healing, without a doubt. Having grown up on a farm, having the opportunity to ride every day, I can't say it any better than you did. And they are incredibly intuitive. And I'm so happy to see that you're expanding this program, because I've had many constituents in my district that work for 911 and dispatch that have been asking me, or emergency EMS on the ambulance, to have something for mental health to help them decompress. And so the expansion of this program is going to help a lot of people in our state that deal with protecting us in the worst of times. So thank you. I'm glad it's being a beneficial program to so many. And thank you, Officer, for your service and for sharing the program. Wonderful.
Representative Bakeberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Officer Jacobson, Representative Kosnick. This is something that is easy, in my opinion, for us to support. If you haven't had a chance to go out and visit Canterbury and talk with Sally, and you just got the tip of the iceberg of the passion that she has for the work that she's doing, but really her heart for serving first responders. And that's the piece that I took away. And I think one of the blessings that I have found in serving in this role is you're able to see the things that are happening within our community that are just amazing. And this is one of those things. I don't represent Canterbury Park. It's just outside of my district, but it's obviously a big economic driver in our area. And I knew about Canterbury, but I didn't know about Abijah's and the amazing work that they are doing. And something that Sally shared to me one of the first times we talked, and she said it again today, is Abijah's is supporting those who support us. And she said, many of our first responders don't slow down until they break down. And I think we just need to think about that for a little bit. And hearing Officer Jacobson's just honest, heartfelt testimony about his service to our country, losing his fellow soldiers, thank you. Thank you for your service. And I would just really challenge members, go out to Canterbury, set up a meeting with Sally, and you will walk away and just be encouraged by the amazing work that is happening to support those who support us. So thank you. I'm proud to support this.
Thank you very much. Lee Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Kosnick, for advancing this, and Ms. Mixon, and then Officer Jacobson, thank you for your service to our country. And I'll note that service is even continued today, because you've shared some, I imagine, some pretty challenging things to share in this setting, but you're doing so on behalf of other folks, and so thank you so much for all that service. And I guess, and I had heard this bill previously a couple times in the Public Safety Committee, and I'm trying to think through, we had heard a bill just yesterday in Public Safety, as it turns out, from a program called Hometown Hero Outdoors, which provides sort of outdoor experiences and mental health services for first responders. And maybe, I don't know if Ms. Mixon could just talk about kind of the interaction between the two programs, if at all. I assume you're familiar with them and just understand, and I do want to emphasize, I work as a prosecutor outside the legislature. Mental health and support for first responders is just absolutely critical. So grateful for that, and just sort of understanding the interaction. To Ms. Mixon, Mr. Chair, if you're willing.
To Ms. Mixon.
Ms. Mixon, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Or Representative Kosnick may know, but I suspect she probably is the expert.
So Hometown Hero Outdoors, I learned about them a few years back, and they really specialize on the nature aspect, right? They started with veterans, I believe, and really taking veterans out into nature and how healing that can be and the camaraderie of it. And then they've also started working with first responders. I know Chris himself is a retired officer. And so as I got to talking with them, I was like, well, this is interesting because we actually we're doing clinical work and we're outside. I mean, horses are outside and we're in nature. And so that could be a really interesting partnership just from a referral standpoint. There's so many individuals that I see that I'm like, the rapport, the camaraderie, they need their own herd. And so to send them to a place like Hometown Hero Outdoors, like, hey, like get to know a new herd, and then vice versa. There's people that are really struggling. They go on trips and it kind of opens up a door of hurt and wounds. And so then they can refer them to us and we can go deeper into that mental health aspect of it. So I thought it was a really cool opportunity. Like, yeah, you like outdoors? So do I. So.
Lee Pinto?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it sounds like maybe both organizations kind of, the two kind of having slightly different spots depending on the need of the person. And of course, we want to make sure we meet those needs. And then I guess, and I'd spoken briefly with the chair about this before, and Representative Koznick or Chair Koznick and Chair Baker and I all started at the same time. Just thinking through the best path for this, I'll say that I'm wondering a little bit about whether it will end up being the best fit in this area, especially as it expands to retired law enforcement. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be. I'm just sort of trying to, it's early days yet. And I was wondering whether Chair Koznick might consider, the bill had been heard previously in public safety, and one thought to consider at least might be to send it in that direction just as an additional possible path for funding, which, and I will say as the lead on our side, I wouldn't see that as preventing funding here, but it's more sort of doubling the possible paths. I wouldn't force that issue today, maybe even something that wouldn't happen today, but maybe the chair and Chair Koznick might want to bring it back up for that. But just sort of, I do wonder a little bit if it might potentially end up fitting better on that side, depending, and we can obviously have conversations as we're putting together budgets, but might offer that to Chair Koznick for consideration, especially, as I say, having just heard that other bill yesterday, that while different, is meeting first responder mental health needs, and it might fit a little bit better there than in the workforce development space. For consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Lead Pinto. I think the plan for this is to lay it over in this committee at this point. I don't know if you've had a chance, Representative Koznick, to talk about this with anybody in public safety at this point, but you may know the history better than I do, but any comments to Representative Pinto's comments?
Yep. Lead Pinto and committee, Chair Baker, when we first introduced the program 2 years ago, and again, this is without a lobbying group or anything, this is just me talking to a constituent and seeing a need. We did have a hearing in the Public Safety Committee. There was a nice video, if you're not already sold on the program, that really was very touching. It was a firefighter in that case, talking about how he was suicidal, and because of the therapy, changed his outlook on that. Working with our Senate counterparts, they wanted to run it through the workforce development program because they understood the need. And so we had a discussion with then Chair Mueller, and that was the path that was taken. And I think, again, with the astounding retention rate, the workforce development fund is why we're back here. But certainly open to have further conversations. If you're suggesting belts and suspenders, I'm all for that too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Representative Pete Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Baker, Representative Koznick, Ms. Mixon, Officer Jacobson. I appreciate you guys bringing this issue forward. I've been a professional firefighter for 23 years, and one of the biggest challenges our members face is, and I'm sure it's the same for law enforcement, is getting the right coverage when you need it. Quite often, the therapists and the folks that our folks go to are not trained to deal with the issues that our folks are dealing with. I've had members that have finally reached the point to go talk to somebody only to get turned away after the first session because the therapist or the counselor that they were talking to did not have the skills to actually deal with the issues that they have. So you talked a little bit about this being, clinical coverage or clinical therapy. So is there a reason why, I was poking around on your website last night and a little bit this morning, Ms. Mixon, is there a reason why you guys don't try to access insurance coverage for this?
Ms. Mixon.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, one of the big reasons, my brothers are both in law enforcement, dad's a Marine, very good friends, firefighters, and throughout the years of serving this population, so many will not go to traditional therapy or any therapy for that matter because when there's insurance involved, because once there is, I as a clinician have to do a diagnostic assessment. And that means they're diagnosed with something. That puts up a big wall because that follows them into their career. They can become a liability, so to speak, if they're carrying a 9mm with PTSD. So a lot of them stop right away from even seeking therapy because they don't want that stigma. They don't want that diagnosis. And I don't blame them. I mean, as a mental health provider, diagnoses can be really tough to navigate and can affect you long term. So we've just taken the approach of let's tear down every barrier because these lives are so important. And let's fundraise our butts off to save as many lives as we can. So that's the approach we've taken.
Representative Johnson.
I appreciate that. Chair Baker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit more about this. I think that opens up a broader problem that we face here in Minnesota and across the country of how we treat our first responders when they do ask for help. Those are other bills that I think we should be working on so that when a member does go get help, they're given that pathway back. But I also think there is some concern with somebody not getting that diagnosis for the resources that diagnosis may open up, whether that is a disability pension or a pension retirement, because there are certain cases where those folks shouldn't be carrying that 9mm and be on the streets, and it's important to identify those as well. And just one quick question, because Chair Baker had brought it up with one of the groups that presented yesterday about their 990 and things like that. After hearing that, I started looking up all the different groups that come through and just kind of perusing through some of those things. Are you guys a nonprofit with a 990, and where could we find that?
Our business person's coming.
Hi,
Thank
my
you.
name is
Please
Jenny
introduce
Palmer.
yourself. Yep.
I am the co-founder of Abijah's, and I work on the business development side. When we officially started, my partner, Ms. Mixon, has been doing this work for 10 years. And when we started in 2021 at Canterbury, we registered as a LLC, as a mental health service provider. We then partnered with a fiscal sponsor, 501c3, who had a mandate to support mental health through horses. And so for the first couple of years, we worked under their 501c3 umbrella. In 2024, we established our own 501c3 through the IRS, and we will be filing our first 990 this year in the next month or two. And then we've also retained a new accounting firm that specializes in nonprofit accounting so that we can actually convert our entire process over into the nonprofit space.
Thank you very much, Representative Johnson, and thank you for bringing that up. I was planning on addressing that because I knew they were in a transitional period right now, so thank you for that. Anything further? Representative Johnson?
No, just one quick last thing. I do appreciate, like, especially from the folks sitting around this table, the sentiment for supporting our first responders. This is something, there's a lot of issues that we've been banging our heads on the table, from pensions to health insurance coverage to proper staffing levels and all those types of things. So I look forward to talking to each and every one of you about those issues. And just final thank you to the folks who brought this forward today.
Thank you. Final member question, Representative Hussein.
Representative Kosnick, first respond is critical, and the question that I have for you is, walk me through it. Like, is a doctor has a referral for, how do they seek for help for those officers? How do they determine that they need the services? Is it they call you guys, or and how long would take this training? Is it an hour, so they have to come back twice a week, or can you work us through the program, and what success numbers that you guys
Ms. Mason.
have so far?
Oh.
And is there any, this program exists in any other states?
Ms. Mason.
I'm trying to figure out what one to answer to first. So how they come to us, we've really taken the relationship approach. And so we build relationships with departments across the state, meeting with chiefs, meeting with peer support teams. And it's been truly a testament. Most honoring thing that's ever happened with Abijah's is we've grown based on word of mouth, based on other first responders going back to their departments and saying, hey, you need to try this. And that's been incredibly humbling and honoring for that. In order to, when an individual comes, we assess their need. And so we offer weekly sessions. Some could come bi-weekly. And then we also do intensives, because first responder schedules are, all over the place. And so, for example, a year ago yesterday with Burnsville, we offered a handful of intensives. There's been some pretty awful incidences crime-related domestics that have been really difficult. And so we'll say, let's get you in here, whether it's for a half day, full day, and really get ahead of this. And so it's like 2 months of therapy in a day. And so we really work individually with kind of creating that treatment plan for that person, and then also for that department, whatever their needs are, and coming alongside their peer support team or any other therapists that are already involved in that department. We're super collaborative. I love just expanding the herd, right? Like continuing to go and reach out. So does that answer? Did I miss anything?
I can speak to success rate since, oh, sorry.
That's all right, go ahead. Your name again, please?
Danny Palmer.
Yes, Ms. Palmer, go ahead.
Thank you. We've seen 106 officers since the bill was passed in 2023, and we received funding for 2 years, and 102 of those officers are, or firefighters are still active duty. 2 of those that did retire did so because of age, not because of other jobs-related stressors. And we've had, as Ms. Mixon shared earlier, we've had some of the retired first responders that we've worked with actually seek to reenter the workforce as first responders over the last 2 years.
Thank you. Final comments, Representative Koznick? We will be laying this bill over, so any closing comments?
Yeah, I appreciate the committee's time and consideration, the great questions. Don't want to take up too much more of your time. Representative Johnson, you brought up some great issues, and we've talked about some of the things with insurance and how we can better incorporate that. And Senator Pratt and I would welcome your thoughts and experience in that. I would just say that, one of the reasons Lakeville's so connected to this program is because when I was just touring and watching the horse races with a constituent, found out about this. As a nonprofit, they do outreach and well in ground into the law enforcement community, but they did and still do a lot of fundraising on their own. I just thought this was an opportunity to address the workforce shortage on that. And so Lakeville fortunately has a public safety foundation to support different things that are not in the budget for the Lakeville police officers and first responders. And so I connected them with the Lakeville Rotary, the Lakeville Public Safety Foundation, the Lakeville Chamber to continue to support it. So it's not a Lakeville program. They don't even, they're close to Lakeville, but it's just something that was really welcomed in my district. But I think the additional support that we provide has proven itself to be extremely just a fantastic opportunity and needed service for first responders. And so I appreciate the additional consideration, support, and we did broaden it a little bit to include the bigger breadth of first responders and not just law enforcement. I appreciate the time, Mr. Chair, and the committee, and if you have any questions as we continue to go forward, we're available for you.
Thank you, Representative Koznick, and to the testifiers. Great hearing this morning. House File 261 will be laid over for possible further inclusion, so thank you very much for coming in.